In the vast expanse of time, there are stories that stretch beyond the reach of ordinary understanding. They seep through the cracks of history, twining with the fabric of reality until they blur into myth. But there are others, stories that remain untouched by the ages, stories of love, loss, and the unknowable. For Elysia, the journey began in the most unexpected of places. A small, unassuming bookshop in the heart of Istanbul. Elysia, a woman of intellect and curiosity, stepped inside, her footsteps quiet against the creaky wooden floorboards. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, but sometimes, something deep within would pull her toward the unknown, toward the mysteries that lay hidden in the forgotten corners of this world. It was there, in the dusty shadow of a neglected shelf, that she found it, the ancient bottle. A relic from a time long past, and yet, its glass shimmered with an unusual light, as if it held secrets that the world had forgotten. The moment Elysia touched the bottle, a chill ran down her spine. It felt alive. Alive with a story that was waiting to be told. The shopkeeper, an old man with eyes like polished stone, watched her silently. He knew the power of the object she had found. He had seen it before, in the eyes of others who had stumbled upon the same relic, only to be consumed by its tale. Elysia, however, was different. She was no stranger to the strange and the unknown. She had spent her life studying the myths and the forgotten histories of the world, finding meaning in the seemingly absurd. But this was something else entirely. The shopkeeper's voice broke through the silence, his words slow, deliberate. "You must ask yourself, Miss Elysia," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Are you ready to hear the story it will tell?" Elysia looked at the bottle once more. Something within it stirred, as if it were beckoning her to learn more, to uncover the mystery that had been locked away for centuries. Curiosity won. She asked, without hesitation. "I am ready." The bottle trembles in her hands, and the air around her seems to shift. The shopkeeper gives a knowing nod before turning away. As the sun began to set outside, casting long shadows across the shop, Elysia sat down at a small table in the corner. The bottle, now resting in front of her, seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own. The world outside faded into nothingness, as though time itself had stopped, waiting for the tale to unfold. And then, without warning, the air grew cold. A voice, ancient and powerful, filled the room. "I am the Jinn," it said, the words reverberating through her chest. "Bound by time, trapped by fate. For centuries, I have waited for someone like you." Cut to a swirling mist of dark smoke emerging from the bottle, taking shape and form. A figure slowly emerges, a man, tall and regal, with eyes like molten gold. He is clothed in ancient, tattered robes that shimmer with a faint light. Elysia's eyes widened in disbelief as the figure took shape before her. She had heard stories of jinn, spirits of fire and smoke, capable of granting wishes and altering fate. But this was no myth. This was no simple tale. This was real. The jinn's voice echoed again, his presence overwhelming. "I have lived 1,000 years, bound to this bottle by the hands of fate. And yet, I am not without power. I can offer you a wish, Elysia. One wish for you alone." Elysia's heart raced. She had always been skeptical of such tales. But this was something different. This was something tangible. But as the jinn spoke, something in his eyes caught her attention. There was more to him than just power. There was a sadness, an unspoken longing that seemed to stretch beyond the centuries. "Why have you waited so long?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The jinn's gaze softened, and for a moment, the air in the room grew heavier. "I have waited not for a wish, but for someone who could understand the true price of such power," he said, his voice quieter now, almost as if he were speaking to himself. "For someone who could see beyond the illusion of desire. I have lived, loved, and lost. And through it all, I have learned that wishes come with a cost." Elysia, despite the fear gnawing at her, was drawn to him. His words resonated with something deep inside her. She had spent her life in pursuit of knowledge, but there was something in this moment that felt like the culmination of all her studies. This was not just a story. This was a lesson. The jinn continued, his voice now more controlled, as if he had rehearsed these words for countless years. I have granted many wishes in the past, he began. Each time, I have watched as their desires consumed them. And each time, I have felt the weight of their regrets. It is the price of immortality, to grant the wishes of others, only to watch as they unravel. Elysia sat still, her mind racing. She had always been fascinated by the idea of power, the kind of power that could change fate. But now, in the presence of this ancient being, the true cost of such power was becoming clear. The jinn's face darkened, his eyes shifting away, as if burdened by the weight of his own words. I have granted wishes for those who sought wealth, fame, or love, he said, his voice tinged with bitterness. But in the end, they were all left wanting. For a wish is not a gift. It is a trap. And those who seek it are forever chained to their desires. Elysia looks down at the bottle, her fingers lightly brushing its surface. The room is quiet, save for the faint sound of her heartbeat echoing in the silence. I don't want a wish, Elysia said, her voice firm. I don't want anything that comes with a price. The jinn's eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed to be taken aback. It was as if he had never heard such words before. The jinn's form begins to ripple, the mist swirling around him. The air grows colder still, as though the very room is holding its breath. The jinn's voice, now tinged with a note of wonder, spoke again, softer this time. You are different, Elysia. You truly do not desire anything from me? Elysia's gaze did not falter. I have spent my life seeking answers, but I've learned that not everything must be given. Some things are better left untouched. The jinn steps closer, his presence overwhelming, yet there is a change in his demeanor. He studies her as though seeing her for the first time. You are wise beyond your years, he said, his voice almost reverent. Most would have seized the opportunity. Power is an intoxicating thing. Elysia shook her head, the weight of the moment sinking deeper into her consciousness. I've learned that power often comes with consequences we cannot foresee. I'd rather live with the unknown than risk losing myself to a wish. The jinn watches her for a long moment, and then his expression softens, the sadness within him deepening. I once wished for freedom, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought that if I could be free, I could escape the endless cycle of granting wishes. But freedom, it is a fleeting thing. I was bound by my own desires, my own mistakes. The room grows heavy, the weight of his words hanging in the air like a thick fog. Elysia takes a deep breath, her voice steady. And now you are bound again, to this bottle, to this place. But perhaps you're not just bound by the bottle. Maybe you're bound by your own regret. The jinn recoils as if struck by her words. His eyes, once filled with an unyielding fire, now appear dim, clouded with the passing of centuries. Regret, he repeats, as though tasting the word for the first time. Yes, perhaps that is my true prison. The regret of every wish I granted, every soul I failed. The mist around him swirls again, darker now, as if the very room itself mirrors the weight of his sorrow. Elysia leans forward, her voice calm, though her heart races as she speaks. But you don't have to be defined by that. You can choose differently. You don't have to grant another wish if it costs you your soul. The jinn's form flickers, as though unsure of himself for the first time in centuries. His golden eyes meet hers, a flicker of something ancient and fragile behind them. I have been trapped in this cycle for so long, Elysia. I do not know how to stop. The room grows deathly still, the only sound the distant hum of the wind outside. Elysia stands slowly, stepping closer to the jinn. Her voice is soft, but full of conviction. Then you must choose. You can stay here, trapped by your regrets, or you can leave. Not by granting wishes, but by forgiving yourself. By letting go of the past. The jinn stares at her, the weight of her words sinking into his very being. It's as if the truth of her words is a mirror, reflecting a truth he's avoided for centuries. "You would help me?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can help you," Elysia replies, her voice steady. "But I can offer you something I've learned over the years. It's not the wishes we make that define us. It's what we choose to do with the time we have." The djinn stands in silence, his form flickering like a mirage, the weight of her words slowly breaking through the centuries of pain and regret. For a long moment, they stand there, neither moving, both caught in the gravity of the decision that hangs between them. And then, something shifts within the djinn. His form stabilizes, his eyes no longer burning with the fierce intensity they once had, but softening, as if a great burden has been lifted. "I have granted many wishes," he says, his voice quieter now, more thoughtful. "But I have never been given the chance to ask for something myself. What is it you would ask for then?" The djinn hesitates, as if the question itself is a revelation. "I have lived 1,000 years, he begins, his voice steady now, but tinged with the weight of time. "I have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the love of mortals and the betrayals of gods. I have seen the world change in ways I cannot begin to understand. But if I could ask for one thing, it would be to know what it means to truly be free." "You're not bound by the bottle anymore," she says softly. "You're free to make a choice. You've already chosen the path of forgiveness." The djinn's form flickers again, and for a fleeting moment, the air around him shimmers with a soft light. He smiles, a smile that is both bittersweet and peaceful, like the first rays of dawn breaking after a long night. "Perhaps," he says, his voice carrying the weight of centuries, "true freedom is not in the wishes we grant, but in the choices we make." As the last of the smoke vanishes, Elysia is left standing alone in the quiet room. The bottle, now empty, rests in front of her. The world outside continues, unchanged, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But something inside Elysia has shifted. Her journey, it seems, was never about the answers she sought, but the choices she made along the way. Elysia walking out of the bookshop, the evening sky stretching above her. The bustling streets of Istanbul are alive with the hum of life, the sunset casting long shadows over the city. She steps into the crowd, her heart lighter than it has been in years. The story of the djinn will remain with her, but she knows that it is not the story that defines her, but the life she chooses to live from this moment forward. And as the sun sets on the horizon, Elysia walks forward, into the unknown, knowing that the real magic is not in the wishes we make, but in the lives we choose to live.